Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the final session of day 2. We've got another great group of presenters here with us today. I am going to turn it over to Dawn Yeskulsky with Track, and she will be guiding you through and introducing each of these gentlemen on the call. So enjoy, and we'll talk to you soon. All right, Dawn, all you.
Thanks, Corinne. Hi, everyone. Dawn Yeskulsky here from Track and Travel Net Services. I am honored today to be the moderator, and today's session, the last and final session of the day, we are going to be talking about homeowners and how rate management, revenue management, dynamic pricing all relates to the homeowners. So in this session, I've got 3 great panelists that are going to be joining me. The first one I'd like to introduce is Omer Rabin, who is the Managing Director of Guesty. Omer, say hi. Then I've got Tim Speicher, who is the Head of Product for Buoy. And then Tim, hi.
Hello.
And then we have always our Ed Ulmer, who is the Head of Tech, Manager of Product for Barefoot. Guys, thank you so much for doing this. I know this is kind of a unusual circumstance, but we're all powering through it. And our thoughts and prayers are going out to all of our friends out on the East Coast that are in Sally's path. So just know we're thinking about everybody else out there. So today's session, from what I was so wonderfully instructed by Amy, is it's really hard for us as in the vacation rental management industry to wrap our heads around revenue management. And it's even harder for homeowners. So as many PMs are out there, and we've got contracts with our own owners that are based on seasonal static rates, we're going to discuss today, how are we going to be communicating with these homeowners and educating them along the way as to what dynamic pricing is, what revenue management is, and really get their buy-in as well, so we can all work together to get the pricing correct for our industry. So we all know that revenue management, it's new, and we don't even have these best practices in yet. So over the next hour, we're going to be talking currently about homeowners, what tools are available, how our industry and businesses are transforming due to revenue management, and then just how we can all come together to spread this word about this to the homeowners. So I'm going to go ahead and start with Tim Speicher. And Tim, if you would start us off talk to us about communicating with the owners and the hosts and how you describe this flexible pricing.
Yeah, so so when it comes to communicating with owners, I have a couple of different guidelines that I like to use. It's tricky because, you know, as a revenue manager, you have all sorts of industry-specific knowledge. You know how to approach revenue, but the owner usually knows a ton about their specific property and about their specific neighborhood, but they don't necessarily know about the revenue management principles. So you can either, you can choose one of 3 ways to approach that. Number one, you're like their resource and their educator, and you are giving them a narrative on everything that's happening all the time. It's time-consuming, but effective. Number 2, you can try to educate them so they understand things like RevPAR and stuff like that. Or number 3, you can try to present the information to them in a way that they understand from the get-go without having to have any sort of special training. So let me jump into how I approach that. So the first thing that I like to say is, like, when you're a vacation rental revenue manager, especially if you're dealing with people who have fairly small portfolios or even people who just don't have formal revenue management training, then you're doing less managing revenue and a lot more managing anxiety on behalf of the manager, the property manager. And the way that I try to combat that is by increasing my reporting frequency. So this is going to seem a little bit strange, but I send about 35 reports a month. They're focused reports, as I'll show you, but I tend to do 35 a month. So 1 every day, 1 on a weekly frequency, and then 1 monthly report. So for the daily, I do new sales from the previous day, and I look forward to the next week's occupancy. Weekly, I look at the monthly margin to date, and then I look at the next 3 weeks occupancy. And then monthly, I look at seasonal performance, market trends, benchmarking, that kind of stuff. That's where I get a little bit fancier. So I actually distribute all of this via email, and I try to make it easier for the vacation rental property manager to click on an email and receive an answer to their question than it is for them to click on their text and ask me a question before I wake up. So this is what that looks like. This is the daily beacon that I have. So you'll see up here I have a couple of alerts. This is like if I spot something, and when I say I actually mean the AI that I have working for me. If it spots a double booking or something like that, it'll pop up at the top of the email. And that's because I know almost everybody begins their day by looking at this. And then we say, okay, so for last night, what'd you do? You did $12,000 in stay revenue on 86% occupancy, and you had $16,000 in new sales. So they're like, okay, great. New reservations are coming in, all of that's good. I see the new reservations here at these listings. This is the reservation value. These are the dates. And it's all in chronological order, so it's easy to spot if something's amiss. So that's looking at the previous day. Next, I look forward a week. So I say, okay, for your whole portfolio, this is your upcoming occupancy. This is where you are in Chicago. This is where you are at the Lincoln Building in Chicago. And this is where you are at the listings in the Lincoln Building in Chicago. So for every one of these listings, I say, all right, here's your studios. And I show for each of the upcoming 7 days if it's empty, blocked, or booked. So the point of this is to just answer the question, like, how am I doing? And it also makes it very easy for me to like scroll through a whole bunch of listings and figure out like how things are performing and like if I overlooked anything. This works well into the hundreds of listings I have found. Like proper formatting just makes things really, really easy. And then if something looks amiss, you can click on it, head into your PMS and see the calendar in detail. So then for the weekly email, I send this out every Monday. I say, okay, so for the previous week, you did this amount in stay revenue, this was your occupancy, and you did this much in new sales. And then the next most important margin the next most important metric that I found is margin. I have people enter this individually, so this is really more of a goal that they know, like, okay, when I hit the green, I'm going to be making money. And so I break that down for the entire portfolio as of that date, and then by the month, and then by the building, and then down by the listing again. Just because I feel like we should all be able to know at any point, like, how well each one of our listings is doing. So we looked back 7 days, now we're gonna look forward 21 days. This is the rest of those listings at a margin level. And so for the upcoming 21-day look, I say, okay, this is very similar to the 7-day look. Everybody's used to this visual vernacular. And so we can say, all right, great. For the upcoming 3 weeks at Lincoln 114, I can tell we're booked for the next 7 days. We're blocked for 3, then we're off 1, then we're blocked for another 3. Then we've got a Monday, Wednesday, and Sunday single night booking that next week. That seems very strange, but this is just a mock-up, so that's why it looks like that. And so this as well, you can like very quickly just like scroll through a whole big portfolio and know generally over the next month, like how well you're performing. So then I do the monthly report where I say, okay, same format. This is how much you made last month. This was your occupancy. This was your margin. And then, I look at next month first. So like on October 1st, you know that you have something on the books already heading into October. So again, managing anxiety, more important than managing revenue in some cases. It's very reassuring to me to know that something's actually on the books when I begin the month. And then I say, okay, it's October 1st, your mortgage is probably due this day, or whatever it is. This is how much you made the previous month, this much occupancy, blah, 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 same thing. And then I give a final tally on the margin there, and it's broken down just like it is in the weekly. So the reason I find this to be effective is it's very focused, and there's almost no abstraction. I find homeowners are confused by abstraction. So like the moment you say RevPAR to somebody, they get really, really confused. And even if you explain it to them, like they still get very, very confused. So I try to keep RevPAR out of the conversation unless I'm talking to somebody pretty experienced, or unless they're willing to like sit down and listen to me talk for a really long time. And I also try not to present ADR unless it's within context, because for example, you get a 5-night reservation over the 4th of July. Well, when you see the 4th of July, you remember the high ADR or the high rate you set for that night, but then you forget, oh, this is a nice 5-night reservation, so like there might be some off-peak days there dragging the ADR down. You can see how that can be confusing. And then when you're benchmarking, make sure that you employ the 5 butts that I talked about in yesterday's session when you're setting a cohort. And then the last thing to remember is like sometimes you're a data scientist, but more often I find myself being kind of a weatherman in that like I don't need to explain why, like I don't always need to explain like why the high air pressure pushes the weather system down into the southern states or whatever. But as long as I can illustrate that it is happening, that's usually very effective. And I'll show you what I mean here. Let me hop into my screen. So what I'm going to show you here is let me zip back to the beginning. So this is how I approach reporting. So this is going to show you how 10 listings in Nashville performed from February 15th through June 14th. So like straight through the heart of the coronavirus. I built this so we could analyze how ADR was impacted and look at length of stay and cancellations. So the first thing that I'm going to do is go through and show you like individually how each of the 10 reservations performed, and then I'll show you how all of them filled up over that period of time. And just for reference, you've got dates on the bottom, and then you've got dollars over here on the y-axis. So we'll just zip through. This is only 50 seconds long, and if it's choppy, head to LinkedIn because I posted it there as well. So these are the individual listings. You can see that one's pretty good. That one's got a big gap. This one had a nice long reservation. This one had some cancellations. This one had another big gap. This one had a couple of gaps, some shorter reservations and some cancellations. Nice big long reservation there. And then this is how the entire portfolio filled up. And so you can see how this is sometimes much more like being a weatherman than it is being a data scientist, because I'm showing literally when the stays occurred, when they were booked, if they were kept or canceled, or what. So you can see like the ADR dropping, the stay length increasing as we improved the minimum to 3. You can see that some of those shorter reservations at higher ADRs got canceled, and then you can see the market beginning to recover as we head out into May and June. So it took 50 seconds, and now you have a really, really good idea of how 10 listings you've never seen before performed over a period of more than 100 days. And so like I would say to anyone who would criticize like how basic this can seem and like how obvious and non-technical it can seem, like I don't know of a better way to understand what happened at those 10 listings than this visualization. And I would be surprised if any of you understand your 10 listings like as well, or if you could understand 10 of your own listings as well in just 50 seconds without a visualization like this. So yeah, this was very powerful to me, and also to the portfolio manager who saw this. All right, so lastly, let me hop into the presentation mode again. Boop. All right, so lastly, never give your homeowners too much rope because they will hang themselves. So they're often reactionary, where even veteran owners can panic and drop rates. Just recently, I heard somebody I'd worked with for a very long time and made a lot of money in the past say like, I know that I'm losing money by taking these low ADR bookings like for a long time heading out into the future, but I'm so anxious about my empty calendar that I can't help but take them. And so like he was very rationally being irrational, or I should say maybe he was self-awarely irrational. So like if anything you can do to like completely control the rates, that's helpful in terms of like making money. Stay-mins, they don't always work how they think it works. I have another visualization just like the Nashville one that I could show you, showing you how that exact same partner, they got some bad press about their listings heading into the coronavirus, and they panicked and made their minimum stay length 5 nights and put a really big length of stay discount on there. And then all of a sudden their whole summer got booked out at a really low ADR, and they missed 3 weeks of recovery. And that 3 weeks of recovery would have more than made up for the difference in ADR that they got from the long-term bookings. So it's like anything that you can do to like take control, again, I say do it. And then lastly, this is just a reiteration, if you have to ask permission and something went wrong, I call that the Cowabunga Rule. And so I'll show you with the same partner. So this is looking at 2018. And the revenue for their portfolio is in this dotted line here. and versus 2019 when I started working for them. So you can see I started working for them in March or April, sometime around there. And you can see like they had a little bit of portfolio growth year over year. They were still using the same base rate algorithm. And I started working for them, and they were so hesitant to let me employ any of my ideas that after a couple of months, they were like, hey, you've got to start improving stuff, or else we're not going to have a relationship. And I get it. Like if I couldn't do more than like the base level improvement, I totally get it. But they weren't letting me put in any of the ideas that I had. So I decided to just not tell them that I would do it, and decide like either I get fired for not making enough money, or I get fired for being crazy. So I decided to go crazy, and I got really aggressive with the rates. I got really aggressive with the minimum length of stay, and I just didn't tell them what I was doing until I said, oh, by the way, I changed all of this stuff, and that's why you had your biggest month ever. So it's really important to make sure you're right. If you're gonna go Cowabunga, you gotta be right. But honestly, given the major gap in like revenue management knowledge between portfolio managers and revenue managers, you should be able to beat them. And then lastly, I just want to show, like, because I have it here, I want to show how COVID impacted this portfolio, because I feel like that's always interesting to see. So because I had earned their respect over this period of time, they trusted me to like take their rates all the way down, get what we could get, as COVID was really hitting the business, and then claw back. So I ran this report at the beginning of August, so I don't have any further data than that, but that shows sort of like the end of the story there. All right, I think that's all that I have. Who's next?
Well, let me ask you a quick question first before you go on. So tell us, all this data is great, and we know that we have to sell it to the owners. So tell us, what is your elevator pitch to get people to actually give up control of their pricing and turn it over?
Yeah, I say you have complete transparency. Like, I'm always going to set the rate, and then you can go in and adjust it. It's always a lot easier for them to get it right if I get them 90% of the way there first. Fine, they want to go in and make a little bit of adjustment so they feel like they have complete control over their portfolio. Great, that's part of managing anxiety rather than managing revenue. And who knows, like I'm not 100% perfect. I tend to get it right more often than not, but like if we can collaborate on setting rates, then like absolutely, let's do it. Just let me take the first pass at it.
How often do you think the owner actually goes rogue and goes outside of the boundaries that you set? Is it quite often, or do they normally stay within the guidelines that you set?
In the beginning, it's all the time until they get too tired of it and start focusing on other stuff. And then when they start to see the reports and see that the numbers keep going up, that usually buys trust. So like there's usually like a weird like 2-week period where they're saying like, oh my God, you're putting my rates where? Oh, nobody's ever gonna book it there. And then like after some time, they start to trust it and honestly just get distracted by other stuff because they hired a revenue manager because they couldn't handle it in the first place. Like there's all these guest issues and like urgent crises popping up all the time. There's rarely like a down to the minute urgent revenue management crisis. So like it's easy to hand that off to an experienced person.
Okay. If anybody has any questions for any of our panelists as we're going through, I'm sure that you all are aware that there is a chat function. So if you type your questions into the chat box, those will be sent over to us, and then I'd be happy to go ahead and convey those questions to the panelists. So Ed and Omer, hearing Tim and hearing what they're offering, do you have any input on what they're doing or any suggestions?
Mario, you want to go first?
Sure, and I can go. Do you want me to go into the presentation, Don, or do you want me to just?
Actually, that would be a great segue into your presentation.
Wait, I have one thing I just want to say.
Go ahead.
So
Ed.
expectation and trust, and it starts with expectation. So as Tim said, you're transparent. You've got to be transparent, and when you're first starting this relationship with the owner, or Tim, if you're hired as a consultant and so on, it's all about setting expectation properly and then just proving it, which generates trust. And over time, it becomes second nature. But it's all focused on that. Communication is a big part of that too, and the electronic side of things, which is probably a good segment for you, Omer, as well.
I agree. And by the way, I was very impressed the team you took on yourself at a week like that to be a weatherman. This is not a great week to claim weather weather skills. So kudos on the courage right there. But I do agree with both of you that at the end of the day, our role as property managers, that companies that really help the homeowners, is really about building the trust and introducing predictability at the most unpredictable times, which in my world equal data. And Tim, a lot of what you shared is exactly that kind of revenue data and benchmarking. And I think that's something that we're going to focus on as well. Once I will figure out how to actually show my screen here, which I think is coming. Let's see if you guys can see my screen. Can you?
We can see it.
Phenomenal. So again, thank you for having me. My name is Omer Rabin, and I'm the managing director of Guesty, which is a property management platform. And we serve thousands of property management companies. A lot of them have owners that they're serving. Some of them own their own portfolio. And we work with customers in 85 different markets. I want to talk a little bit about data-driven decision and making data-driven decision making for homeowners in the new normal. The way that we are thinking about that, at least at Guesty, is that especially at a time like this, it's all about delivering as much value as you can to the homeowners, and you do it with real data and real insights. As Tim mentioned before, a lot of time there's some kind of like a gut feeling. A lot of people are trying to base their revenue management decisions on historical data that really is not applicable to the new normal. And especially at a time like this, we figured out that the best that we can offer our customers so that they can make their owners successful is just a lot of benchmarking data, and we update that almost daily and inform our customers in the industry, again, out of the belief that the success of the industry will be our success as a business as well. And so what I'm going to do today is share a little bit of that data and then a few recommendations that we hope that you guys can share with the homeowners, and also get to know a little bit of the resources that we put out there, not only to Guesty customers, but really to the entire industry. So I'm going to talk a little bit in the next 10-15 minutes about data to drive decision making, about the idea of flexible inventory, which was a big push in our product roadmap over the last 3 months. We really shifted our own focus as a property management platform. A little bit about your own marketing strategy and that you are driving for the owners. And finally, a little bit about how that actually translates into technology, which is what we're all talking about today. So property management companies are a great resource for their clients, the homeowners, in providing data and insights, revenue optimization guidance, and trends in ecosystem. If a homeowner is trying to get a decision about, does it make sense that my unit is not full yet, and do I need to lower the price, by comparing what they are seeing, what she's seeing or he's seeing, to what they saw in 2019 or 2018 at the exact same time of the year, it's not going to be a real apples to apples. It's going to be very far from it. And so really being in tune to the data and insights is a big thing. Revenue optimization guidance, really understand how that changes, and it changed a lot from March to April, from April to May, from May to today, and then just in general trends in the ecosystem. Let me talk a little bit about insights that we are seeing. So planning in advance, as we said, is so yesterday, last minute reservations are in. I want to show you here something that is pretty meaningful. A lot of the property management companies we're talking with are talking about the pandemic, the COVID era, as like 2 stages. The big slump, the big darkness, somewhere from like late March to late May, and then basically the revival of the industry, which kind of happened in June, July, August. I want to show here that it's still changing a lot. So for example, if you compare August just to July, so just the last month, the month before, we saw another uptick in reservations made within 1 day of the booking itself. I'm sure many of you have homeowners that are very scared about same-day reservations. Really guiding them to understand what percentage of reservations today globally are being done day of is something that is very, very meaningful as part of that decision making. There's also, again, 5% is same day, 3% the day before, and the majority of the booking, more than 60%, are done only in the 7 days leading to the check-in day. That's something we've never seen before COVID. It's happening today. So flexibility, the ability to set the unit very quickly, the ability to accept same-day reservations up to 10 p.m. the day of, those are very, very meaningful in times like today, where people are basically doing domestic travel, a lot of time is a road trip, and book something last minute, leveraging the flexibility out there.
That right there, normally those same day or next day reservations, those have historically been big red flags for property managers. We know that, you know, chargebacks and fraud and everything that could occur with that. Do you see property managers, do you see this data being conveyed to the property managers so they're not automatically, you know, throwing up a red flag when they see that?
Absolutely, and we see a lot of people, a lot of property managers and homeowners understanding and saying, well, what does it take to actually accept those reservations? I don't want to leave money on the table, and they introduce a lot of technology that they didn't before. Things like, for example, keyless entry technologies, guest verification, and we have a lot of partners on our Guesty marketplace, and every PMS, I'm sure, have those integrations that allow you to basically bring technology that help you set the listing of the property and accept those guests and be in peace of mind about that without having to actually be at the property. And so there is a big step forward to all of those, like keyless entry technologies, guest verification technologies, virtual check-in, virtual cleaning. All of those things really took a step forward during the last few months, allowing more and more people to accept that pile of revenue that used to be very small, maybe 2 or 5%, and now makes more than a quarter of the total reservations being made the day before or day of. But that's exactly right. The other thing is about cancellation policies. There's a lot of homeowners out there that are saying, I just don't put flexible cancellation policy. I'm a niche apartment. People understand that. Or I'm not going to put flexible cancellation policy for the holidays, and a lot of other things. It's very important to take global information and also regional information, slice and dice it, and present the homeowner with real information. What does it mean to not have a flexible cancellation policy, so they can see if they can actually afford that? So if you compare, for example, last July July 2020 to July of last year, you see 18% increase in booking canceled within 24 hours, which means people actually make the booking and then change their mind very quickly. You have 11% increase in bookings canceled within 48 hours before, and that's again 24 hours and 48 hours, sorry, before the check-in, and 9% increase in booking canceled within 72 hours. And so there are definitely last-minute cancellation, but it's going down. So in August 2020, it was similar to August 2019. What I'm trying to say with this very complicated slide, because again, a lot of numbers, is in July, probably introducing flexible cancellation policy was very, very risky. And we saw a lot of property management companies telling the homeowners, maybe put like a 5 days cancellation window. So at least you have time to fill the gap with last minute reservation. Now in August, we see that a lot of properties that don't have flexible cancellation policy are just not getting booked. And on the other hand, more and more people are actually keeping those reservations and not canceling last minute. So that's another insight that I think is worthy of sharing. And the tip that follows that is you want to implement flexible cancellation policy to drive more bookings. What we see on average, and again, this is averaging 85 different markets and thousands of customers, but people that did not have flexible cancellation policy and now have are seeing on average about 30% more bookings compared to those that don't have the flexible policies. And again, that's something very meaningful, and you need to educate the homeowners to get this kind of decision, but to make it as a wise decision, because it's not always true. It's not true for every inventory in every market.
So, question for you. Fast forward a year from now, and we are hopefully out of COVID, and we are in a good recovery situation. How do you think that flexible booking and flexible cancellation policies are going to be a year from now, as opposed to where they were a year ago today? So are we going to stay in this path of stressing that we have to have this flexibility, or do you see it kind of maybe not going back to what it was, but maybe somewhere in the middle? What do you think? What's your prediction?
It's a great question. And again, I'm not a weatherman and definitely not a prophet. I would say that I think in a way, some of the power moved to the guest. And that's something that we need to accept. You know, in a way, I was talking about that with a friend yesterday. The airline industry is an interesting one, because we see now United and Delta and American basically change their policy and remove change fees forever. And I think that can be like a little hint to what's coming. I don't think we're going to go back to what happened before, and I think we're going to see some kind of like a smooth return into a more flexible standard of about cancel by 5 to 3 days, and we're going to see a lot more bookings coming last minute, and I think those are kind of even up. So again, not a profit, but if I need to guess what's going to happen next year, what we're going to see is the standard being at free cancellation until 5 to 3 days before, and homeowners being much more in peace with that, because more and more reservations are going to be coming last minute, because again, there's going to be more supply than before, at least for the next 18 months, and guests are going to feel like they have more power to get that kind of decision late. I hope that answers your question, and again, not a prophecy.
Okay, we won't hold you to it.
Let's move to the next insight, but I love the question, so by all means, let's keep them coming. Travelers are booking longer stays worldwide. Again, I'm not an industry veteran. That's why I look like a bar mitzvah boy. But the average stay in short-term rental property before pandemic was always between 3.2 and 3.6 days. There was nothing that we could do to actually move that. But look at the numbers now and how travelers today are basically redefining the idea of a long weekend, as we called it. The average globally was 4.57, so 4.6 days during the last summer globally. And in the US specifically, if you look at July, we got to a peak of 7.5 days, and at some point it was even 9 days on average, which is between 2 and 3 times the average stay before that. Reason is, we moved from work in the office to work from home to work from everywhere. The lines between leisure time and work times are kind of blurry. People are going out of their houses. They take their partners, their kids, their dogs, and their laptop, and they're going in a car to the countryside and getting to a short-term rental property. And so that's definitely something that is very important to keep in mind, especially when you set some kind of discounting price for longer stays that really provide you with a higher occupancy rate, even if you sacrifice a little bit of the average nightly rate. And as I said, work from home is out, work from anywhere is in. If you look and compare 2020 to last year, not surprisingly, you see that you have more than double the reservations of 90 days or more. And again, a little prophecy here, this is going to go up. We see more and more people from San Francisco, from New York, from Chicago, from Los Angeles saying, why would I renew my lease? I will just live on basically 2 suitcases and move every 2 or 3 months between different units, not committing to a rental agreement of a year. And I think this idea that used to be the digital nomad on the beach in Bali is gonna actually happen even here in the US in domestic travel, where people are just changing location. We kind of coined the idea of life shopping. You're kind of shopping for new life based on the season. And the city with the most stays booked for over 90 days is actually Boston. And again, the reason is it's a college town. A lot of people are basically not wanting to commit or looking for some kind of a big house where they can study together with their friends in the new normal where it's studying remotely. And again, some of the tips around that is in time of uncertainty, you need flexibility. Part of what we give as property managers to the owners is the idea of predictability and certainty and flexibility. So what we've done at Guesty is specifically, we stopped a lot of our initiatives around the product and built our flexible inventory. And the idea is really create in our property management platform, in our software, the ability to shift between short-term, mid-term, and long-term very easily. It's something that came as a demand, not even an ask, an actual demand from a lot of our big customers out there that really wanted to have the ability to shift if now, God forbid, a second wave or a third, depends where you are, is coming in the winter, being able to shift your inventory from like short-term rental to mid-term to long-term, put 60 and 90 days in. And so that's something very, very important that we introduced to become really at a click of a button in the software, and you can learn more on our website. And the idea is also to adjust your marketing strategy to attract those bookings and extended stays. So decrease the pricing on extended stays, especially at seasons when you don't have the predictability, or owners that have this, this wave of anxiety and maybe prefer to actually let go of 30% of the average nightly rate, but know for certain that the unit is going to be occupied for the entire month. Don't pigeonhole yourself, update the description. We saw so many homeowners that are saying, I've been using the same marketing and it worked great for me for 5 years. I'm not willing to change it, and kept the name of their unit as, you know, a honeymoon suite, even though the needs are completely different. And actually, honeymoon is less of a thing right now, but a work remotely or a sanitized unit or a getaway in for safe isolation could have done much better in search engine and in search of customers. And so being able to know that, implement new keywords, talk about the cleaning procedures, highlight the flexible cancellation policies, all of those things that are really around adjusting the marketing strategy and not doing once since COVID started, not say I've done that in May. It is really changing every month, and that's exactly the kind of value that a good property management company can provide a homeowner at times like this. And this is why we update our own data every week. A good case study that I want to suggest is one of our own customer, a Guesty customer named D. Alexander. They started the campaign around destination isolation, what they have done very early in the game, late March, basically transition a lot of their units to be very specifically marketed as COVID friendly or anti-COVID, if you will. Basically talk about retreats of 2 weeks to 3 months in beach town, deserts, mountain areas, and they included professional cleaning as part of the package, personal care products that they actually put in the units, renter's insurance, and they even covered the gas based on specific location to drive up to the destination apartment or house. And a portion of the proceeds also go towards the virus testing and vaccination development. And they offer all of those at dramatically lower prices than usual. That was back in April and May. Now the prices are going up, but that's a great example for, again, a company that really saw that the world is changing and try to understand, after serving a lot of their guests, what do they need to do to capture the market and make sure that their occupancy is still very high. And you can, again, read that in our website, and you can see that in our special coronavirus info center. And also it was covered by a lot of media outlets out there around exactly how short-term rental properties are doing it. And I think, again, as property management companies, you need to find some of your companies that are doing it right, some of the owners that are doing it right, and share those insights. This is something that we are trying to do all the time as well. Another insight, I promise I'm very close to the end. If you're comparing August 2020 to August 19, we were amazed to see that booking in cities went up. So we were not surprised in April or May to see the suburban area and the rural areas going up. The Catskills never had a better spring, but again, that's not surprising where everybody wanna escape the hotbed of the virus here in New York City. What was amazing is to see things like 128% increase in places like Dallas, or 29% increase in Las Vegas, or 70% increase in reservation in Atlanta. I will just caution to say this is reservations, not necessarily total revenue or the average nightly rate. The reason for that, I believe, is not just that people want to be part of the reopening and people just have the pent-up demand and they want to go from wherever they live into the big city and have a staycation. It's also because our market, the short-term rental market, is so much more agile than hotels, and we're much better in really adjusting our processes to really fit the needs of the market and really make travelers much more certain about coming to a short-term rental property and skip being in a hotel where they need to go to check-in stand or share some of the facilities or be in the very busy lobby or trust a cleaner that actually cleans 300 beds before that. And so the short-term rental industry is weathering the storm much better and was very agile, which really led to amazing increase in numbers of reservation in 2020 compared to again, a peak month like August 2019, that before August 2020 was actually one of the strongest months ever for the short-term rental industry. Florida actually, not surprisingly, had the biggest spike in summer reservations. Summer 2019, not a lot of us thought about, you know, a very hot, sweaty summer in Miami Beach. Now that the world is kind of shut down, a lot of people actually headed there. And so you see over 600% increase in reservation in Miami Beach. And if that doesn't make you a little bit more optimistic, I don't know what will. Another tip here that we hope that you will share with the owners is really to act quickly. There's pent-up demand for travel. People simply need a change of scenery. They understand that their summer trip in Europe is not going to happen, but now they're actually completely fine with paying quite a lot even to go on a staycation somewhere within driving distance. People on the outskirts of cities nearby want to safely enjoy the reopening of restaurants, eating outside, and what's happening in cities. And there is a lot of demand out there that you can really leverage if you act quickly and you base all your decisions on data that is really changing on a weekly basis. Rely on the best tech tools around. And again, I'm part of the Guesty leadership team, and we developed a property management platform that really allows you to see all the data in one place and automate all the different processes so you can focus on really adjusting the strategy where your minds play the biggest part. And so we help owners and property management companies automate all those processes and make sure that they are really relying on data and implement the best pricing technology based on the best of breed solutions out there. And again, as I said, it's not really just about our software, it's about having this entire ecosystem around that. And so a company like AutoHost, for example, that is doing the guest verification for the last minute reservations, or Remote Lock, Virtual Key, and many others that are allowing you to accept this kind of reservations and let people into the unit, even if they book just an hour before. So this is very, very important. I, again, suggest to those of you who are our customers and also others to look at all the technologies out there that you can leverage to really not leave money on the table. And lastly, again, it's about really using technology, and we highly recommend, as my friends on the panel here said, the idea of transparency. People crave information and they want to have it at the edge of their fingertips, exactly, especially in times like this. And so again, we're not the only ones offering that, but we do love our own development of the Homeowners Portal, which is one destination that you can really access and stay in the loop about how the properties are performing, including the occupancy, the revenue, notable trends, and even some ad hoc suggestions based on the data that we push to the homeowners and the property managers live on top of our platform. And the idea here is to always be informed about what's happening, see what kind of trends are happening in your properties, and be very agile and quick to not leave money on the table and to leverage all this pent-up demand. Thank you for bearing with me through all those slides with my funny Israeli accent. I really do appreciate that. And that's it for me.
All right. Well, thank you very much for sharing that. Now,
Absolutely.
I know that we've talked a lot about the reasoning behind this and the data and everything. That it makes sense to us. But there's also that, how do we get it to the homeowners? And a part of that is your homeowner contract. How do you get that flexibility that you need as a PM to go ahead and make those changes? So that in turn is going to require that property managers include that that new verbiage within their contracts to the owners. So Ed, I know that you're going to talk to us about looking at property management really as asset management. And just like financial management, how does a property manager go ahead and rate a homeowner's risks and really their goals? Is it treated the same?
Well, that's a complicated question. Again, it starts with communication, documentation, and really sinking your teeth into who they are and understanding their niche. Some owners in some certain markets, getting them to change over to a flexible pricing contract is near impossible because none of your competitors are doing it yet. It may even take a generation, shift on that. But it all starts, as Tim basically said, is, start with the expectation and then go for broke, if you will, to some degree. But as long as you meet that expectation, life is good. And if you start to fail at it, own it really quickly. And I think that's something that we could learn a lot from. In asset management, if you're a stock portfolio person and your market starts to drop, in most cases, the owner of that stock portfolio knows it as fast as you do. And so good asset managers are on top of it. They're like, hey, I know that this has happened and this is how we're dealing with it. I don't know, did that answer the question? Omer, Tim, thoughts?
No, I agree completely. Go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, that's part of why I include that report that goes every day. Is it means that like they know something as soon as I know it, and like that really inspires a lot of trust. If I am so confident in the rates that I'm setting that you can check my work down to the listing level every single day, and I will like proactively send it to you every morning before you're even awake, then like that's a really confident, like faith-based gesture. And so they always know if I have a question, if I don't understand something, I'm going to get an answer probably in the morning. And if I then don't understand it, I can reach out to the guy and ask him directly. So yeah, I would say like that's part of why I communicate so much, because it just inspires trust.
I agree, and I think it's one about over communicating, as Tim said, and the other thing is really about aligning the incentives. And I think some property management companies are very stubborn about the way that they structured their contract from a financial standpoint years ago, and a lot of homeowners really expect some kind of revision of the terms to make sure that everybody is on the same side. And I think when you are a property management company and you say, when you win, I win, and here is the way that the incentives are built to actually make sure that this is the case. And here are a few examples and case studies of some other owners that we supported and managed to show result, then the sky is the limit.
Okay, so Ed, we're going to turn it over to you. There you go. All right.
Yeah, so thanks. We don't have a lot of time, unfortunately.
Actually, we're the last session of the day, so we can go as long as we want.
Good, great.
And I do have questions coming in. So at the end of this, I'm going to read the questions that came in from the attendees, and we'll get those answered for you. So just know that I have those waiting, everyone.
Okay. Can you guys see my screen?
Okay.
Beautiful. All right. So we're changing, we're slightly modifying things. Up to this point, it's been really heavy data. And data is absolutely crucial out there. But we're also going to talk about, the evolution of what is going on. Obviously, data is part of that. And from my perspective, moving forward, how you can use client for life and asset management to continue to be relevant. And to start that, I kind of have to scare you or shock you a little bit. And some of you probably already, know this. But all right, there are these products out there called platforms, and two good examples of them are Amazon and Uber. You all have used them. They are big data companies, and their job is to put consumers directly with folks that are providing services or providing, a piece of a product or something like that. To be honest, their real job is to put the middleman out of business, which for Uber is taxi companies, and for Amazon, it's brick and mortar retail. Interesting thing about Amazon and the brick and mortar retail is a lot of these big brick and mortar companies also do manufacturing. So in many cases, they've embraced Amazon as part of their sales process. And some of the big brick and mortars, in particular, I'll suggest Walmart, has tried to compete directly with Amazon. Now, unfortunately, and this is important for y'all to know, is that the first person to market usually gets the lion's share of it. So while Walmart may have a great product and so on, everybody's used to doing Amazon. Amazon is the standard and so on. So COVID, we've talked a little bit about COVID, has also played significantly into this. If you go to the grocery store, you're one of the few, because you can now go online, buy everything you want, pay for it, they'll ship it, they'll deliver it, or you can pick a time to go and pick the thing up. So this whole concept of these marketplaces is truly, the future. And it's not going to change. Now, there are other platforms out there, and we're going to talk specifically about two of them that are very, very relevant to us, which is Verbo and Airbnb. Their job, just like those other platforms and many other platforms, is to put the consumer, i.e. the guest, directly with the owner of that property. And in the long run, they are going to significantly change the vacation rental industry. And I would suggest even try and put you out of business. And part of the reason I suggest that is because what does Verbo and Airbnb charge an owner who goes directly? It's under 10%. What do you charge? It's over 10%. So the question I have for you, which is really, really relevant, is how do you continue to be relevant? How do you compete with somebody that is continuing to add services to compete against you that are similar to yours? I mean, think about it. You know, both of these portals, they take credit cards, they do travel insurance, they create tons of reservations. You know, Tim was talking about dynamic pricing. I'm sure many of you guys use Market Maker. They are now, you know, providing those solutions as well, and they're going directly to the owner with that and saying, hey, for 10% or less, you know, we can do all of this stuff. So how are you relevant in that situation? And that's where this whole concept of client for life and asset management kind of falls into place. Before I really get into what the definitions of them are, I'm going to start off by giving one suggestion. Obviously, learn from your competition. If somebody's kicking your butt, you know, understand it, figure it out, and duplicate it, and then go one step further. And that's the great thing about these portals is that, again, dynamic price. This is why this conversation, this data conversation is so relevant, because all of these platforms have big data and they're using this data really efficiently. And so if you're not using this data, you're on your way out. So, you know, part of this is, you know, how do you manage the price of for the owner and so on. And so obviously if you're using Market Maker, that is a tool. Tim's got products. Pretty much all the PMSs have versions of this, and some of them connect to other, you know, it's a kind of a crazy market out there where, you know, we use key data, we have our own. We work with, you know, Destimetrics, we work with local social. I mean, all kinds of different, you know, things that are out there to try and figure this thing out. Again, this whole presentation, at least part of it was, okay, how do you make heads or tails out of this stuff? And that's why folks like Tim, you know, are really, really relevant. And then Omar's, you know, concept of putting things together in nice buckets and so on is super relevant. The interesting thing about the portals that use Market Maker, all they're doing is providing you as a dashboard, is the information. How you interpret it is a completely different situation. So again, the point is, how do you compete with these guys when they are adding more services? You duplicate what they've got, and then you try and figure out ways ahead of that. So getting and communicating with your owners and making them understand that stuff is super relevant. Let me see if I can switch my screen. Is it switching? It is not. Uh-oh. I'm stuck. Hold on 1 second.
We can cheer you in the middle.
I truly appreciate that.
No problem.
It is not moving.
And yesterday I had that problem as well and got over it by sharing my entire like main screen as opposed to just that program. It was I had the same thing. I had to just go off the top of my head for yesterday's session.
Let's see. It looked promising.
Goodness gracious. I need a little help here, it looks like. Webcam, nope.
That's if you wanna send that to one of us, we can also.
Let me see what I can do there.
Be your personal presenters. And if not, Tim will do a dance.
Well, I can just keep going with the thing anyway, and then I can share the rest of the screens with you guys later. You gotta love technology. It's wonderful and it's a pain in the butt at the same time. So the next screen that I was going to highlight was our owner access piece. And one of the things that all portals have is, in addition to pricing schedules and so on, our pricing tools, is portals where the owner can go in and the guest can go in as well. And if you are not using that with your owners, you're at a significant disadvantage, because owners want to be a participant in these things, especially if you're trying to get owners that were once RBO. So it's very crucial that you provide, maybe you are gonna Give this to me. Nope. Can you see any of this? Well, anyway, we don't have a lot of time.
We can see the flow, so we can see a small
Yeah, Ed,
version.
we can see your slides. It looks like they're just not downloaded on there yet.
Got it. So
Oh, Ed, I think I got you back. Why don't you try?
hopefully,
Why don't you
nope,
hit enter?
I am. It's doing nothing. All right. Anyway,
You just
so what I
roll
was
with the
talking,
flow.
yeah, you just got to go with the flow. So what I was talking about is owner tools and so on, owner access, guest access. And again, the key is to really focus on what they do, as well as go the next level. So all PMSs have owner access tools as well. You've really got to, try and get your owners to participate in that, because it's one of the best ways to generate communication of things, remotely and but directly. So pretty much all of the owner portals, the owner logs in, the owner can look at attributes, they can update things, they can look at photos, they can potentially load photos. At least the portals that are Verbo and Airbnb do all of those things. I know we do it. Most of the PMSs also do it. They can update prices, which some of you may go, heck no, I'm not going to let the owner do that. But the reality is, many owners, at least if they've come from the Verbo or RBO models, are used to doing that. And in some ways, moving forward, from Tim's perspective, an educated owner is a wonderful thing. So don't diss that necessarily. Embrace it. And then the other thing too is owners have the ability to reach out and connect with you with any additional issues as well. And that's basically what all of these owner portals do. Now, I would suggest that you actually take that further, because again, you're just kind of competing directly. Owners were once guests. They fell in love with the property. They fell in love with the area. Then they fell in love with the property. They bought the property, and then they found you, and they decided to work with you. They come back to the resort, back to the area, and use the services. So if you're not doing concierge, then that is a problem. You should be doing the upsell of services and so on. And the other thing too is that owners typically go other places. So the more you can talk to the owner, the more you understand about the owner, the better you will be able to understand your niche and provide the services that make all of the difference. So the whole portal side of things is very, very important. If I could show you, my next screen would be a little bit about some data. And the data that I want to show is from NAR. And there's 3 statistics there. Number one is the average homeowner lives 200 miles away from their vacation home. And that one is really important. We'll get back to that in just a second. The second one is that that vacation rental properties are purchased, 50% of them are purchased using a real estate agent, which is significantly lower than what happens in primary residence. It's almost 90% of properties are transferred if it's a primary residence. So to me, that strikes me as a poor value proposition by real estate agents in that local market. They are not promoting enough of who they are and what they are to get those real estate listings. And then the third one, I have to remember what the third one is about, average vacation rental home gets turned over every 9 years, and a primary residence, a house gets turned over 12 years, which leads us into this whole concept of client for life, which is truly a real estate term. And it's something that bigger real estate agencies have known for a while and have tried to figure out for a very long time. How am I relevant to a homeowner when my transaction, my primary connection with them happens between 9 and 12 years? And we all know, any of you guys that are in real estate, they send out the birthday cards and the anniversary cards and calendars every year. And they may send an email out that says, hey, my property I just sold a property down the street for $250,000. Consider selling your property. So that's about the extent of it. Now, we are all really lucky because we do vacation rentals. We do long-term rentals as well. So our whole concept of client for life is something very different because we can affect that owner on a regular basis. We do property management on a regular basis as well. So all of that stuff, connects you more with the owner in a significant way. I would say that there's a very big difference between property management and where I'm going next, which is asset management. Property managers fix things. Property managers are reactive. They're fixing the toilet. That is not, making the asset significantly better. Well, I guess it is in a weird way, but it's kind of an instantaneous type of thing. While asset managers are really all about understanding what the owner's needs are and proactively increasing the value of that asset. So if any of you guys have a stock portfolio and you work with an asset manager, they really focus on the whole concept of, why did you buy this asset? What are you trying to accomplish with this? And then they take that information, document it, and then they focus really on, setting expectation and exceeding it, which again comes back to everything that we've been talking about here with owners. Set expectation, exceed it, and then you generate trust. And then all of a sudden, the concept of the owner going, at 9%, I can go somewhere else, or I can continue to work with you guys at 25%, isn't as tough to make a decision upon, especially if you take it even further than that. Because
what you're essentially saying is that that the property managers really need to take on more of a consulting type role and looking at the unit or the asset holistically, as opposed to just doing standard, property management duties of reservations, accounting, cleanings, and so forth.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. And what you really need to do is kind of step back a little bit and say, okay, interesting. Well, actually, the asset management piece, if you think about it, what do asset managers do? They focus on stocks and bonds and insurance. They don't focus on the property. So who's managing people's property? Nobody really is. But isn't it in most cases a homeowner's or a person's biggest asset? So there's nobody out there really proactively doing this, but it could be you because you are actually, the best suited for it. And this is a piece, and this is one of the big differences between dealing with these platforms, which are national or international, systems, and being the local expert. So every property, doesn't matter if it's a primary residence or a secondary residence, they all have certain needs. They need insurance, they need power, they need, whatever it is. And almost all of that stuff, at least most of it, is local. So you happen to be local. So the key to all of this, number one, is obviously understand what the owner's needs are completely. And those needs may not be price alone. And that's one of the things that I find interesting because, when I look at some of the national competitors that are out there, they call up owners and say, hey, whatever you did last year, we'll give you $5,000 more. Thinking that may, that's obviously, enough to get some people, but, owners own properties for many more reasons than that. It may be an inheritance. It may be they hate the stock market. It may be that they're retiring in 2 or 3 years. And the list goes on and on. So if you understand those things, and then you can apply the services that are associated with what their needs are, you continue to build expectation, you continue to build trust, and ultimately, when that decision comes, they're going to stay with you because you've tangled so much of that property with yourself. You are doing the insurance. I have clients that have an insurance division. I also, if you're not interested in insurance, because it's a lot of work, maybe what you do, and this is an indirect kind of connection, is have a relationship with a company that helps homeowners deal with claims, which is different than an insurance company. If any of you guys have ever had an insurance claim, you know that the person that's handling this really works for the insurance company. Yeah, they're going to write you a check, but there are companies out there whose job is to work with you to go fight for what is really owed. And those guys charge a lot, but almost always they make more money. So if you're tied with one of them, you become, part of the whole win process. COVID is actually a huge win for all of us as well, because when COVID hit, nobody knew what the heck was going on. I mean, I didn't even know in my town what was going on. So if I have a vacation property in Myrtle Beach, for example, number one, I probably don't even have time to think about that. But if I live in a city, I'm like, well, maybe I need to go down there, but I don't know if I can go. So as a property management company, all of you, the smart ones of you, were probably reaching out and saying, hey, we're sort of in the dark as well, but this is what we know, and we're going to keep you updated. And you know what? If you're thinking about coming down here, here are the rules, or no, you can't come, or whatever it is. And what did the international and the big portals and platforms do? We all know. They fired half their staff, and many of them had to go out and looking for venture capital and almost went out of business. They weren't there for these homeowners. So if any of you guys are, kind of sitting back and saying, yeah, we shouldn't be reaching out to owners right now, this is absolutely the best time to do it, because most of these owners, realized by working through, the RBO kind of model that they really didn't have anybody supporting them. And natural disasters is an even more powerful thing. We've got a client in Cape San Blas, which is one island south of Mexico Beach. And when Michael hit, he was on the island. After the storm went through, he came, back to the waterfront, got his drone out and flew around and took photos of all of his owners' properties. And not that there was any power, but he used a hotspot to, send all of that information off to those owners, and those owners had almost instant understanding of what was going on. And more importantly, is that because most of those contractors were in town and he had a relationship with them, he could communicate with that owner and say, hey, I've got a contractor that's willing to start with you right away. It's going to be, 2 times what he usually charges. But at that point, everybody knew that was going to be the problem. So that wasn't that big of a deal. I feel kind of bad for the RBOs that were out there who couldn't even get onto, Cape San Blas for, 3 months. By the time they got onto the island, all the contractors, good contractors, were gone. The only contractors that were there were guys from out of town or girls from out of town with license plates from out of the state. And of course, they're offering crazy amounts of money, for providing the services and supposedly a warranty that would work, but would it really work? So this whole concept of being the local expert, really understanding what the homeowner needs and providing those services is incredibly relevant. I have many more slides. And I'm happy to share those later, but that's kind of the abridged presentation I guess I have for you on this.
Well, great. Thank you so much for that, Ed. I do have questions for everyone. So everybody that's stayed on with us, which the majority of people have been hanging on, so thank you all. I know that we went over time. So I'm going to be pulling the questions that have come in. So let's see. First question is for Tim. How do you recommend, or how do you recommend you integrate with a PMS system? Maybe a better question is, which ones do you work with?
Yeah, so right now we have we've got an API connection with Guesty. So any Guesty users can sign up, and we're ready for you right now. We have another 4 API connections we're working on right now with other PMSs. But other than that, like, we'll make an API connection for anybody as long as there's a minimum of 500 units. Right now we are focused on larger portfolios, but it won't be long before we're everywhere.
All right, the next question is for Omer. Omer, so if so many people are booking last minute, why should I be so concerned with flexible cancellation policies when there is a cost to book in terms of the onboarding of the guest and possibly blocking out dates? Does your data show that the net reflection rate from a flexible cancellation policy outweighs the bookings obtained by just waiting for the last minute bookers?
So the answer is globally, in general, yes. And though, as Tim can probably attest to, those global truth about 85 markets, all type of inventory in every month in every place, don't necessarily actually apply to your specific inventory, which is exactly why I think, again, you need to look at the data for the specific region and do a little bit of A/B testing yourself, probably. I would say this, it's amazing to see how even people that are booking the day before will not book something that doesn't have flexible cancellation terms. Even people who are saying, I'm checking out less than 24 hours from now, know that so much of the inventory out there is available, know that so much of the inventory is with flexible cancellation. In a world like today where things can happen and somebody can start sneezing in the morning or get into quarantine or hear that somebody in their family, God forbid, is now impacted, they want to have this kind of flexibility. I would say, though, that it's also about your nerves. Some of us just cannot be with low occupancy and cannot think about the situation where they're looking at a unit in front of them. It is 5 p.m. and there's no reservation. So there's a lot of panicking. And some of us are having more of like a portfolio approach, looking across the portfolio, studying the data and understand that some nights are going to be open, but it's worthy if you keep the A&R high enough. So I think it's a very personal decision, but to quickly answer the specific question, yes, it does outweigh, and our recommendation would be to have those flexible cancellation terms, because even last minute, people today can optimize to have that, and they care about that even when they book same day.
And
if I can hop in there real quick, I always suggested that people add flexible cancellation policies to their listings even before COVID. I think during COVID, it's the right thing to do because everybody's future is uncertain, and it's just like, cut the guests some slack, But especially during COVID, it's important. But like I did some analyses, and I was like, okay, what is the like, how often do people actually cancel? And like they cancel usually like pretty quickly, but as like time goes on, loss aversion kicks in and they don't want to cancel. And also, if they do cancel, let's say they check in and they're super disappointed with your place and they want to rebook somewhere else, then by all means, let them cancel, get an incentive from your OTA to rebook that same night that they just vacated, and then avoid having a negative review. Because in most cases, that like 2 or 3 star review, or in some cases even worse than that, that's going to cost way more than like the empty night that you have on your calendar. Like, how hard is it to get that recent bad review off of that listing? And like, especially now, like part of the growth that we're seeing in the vacation rental industry is because of this consolidation with hotels. And like, as we start showing up in hotel search results, like when all of those are booked up for peak events and stuff like that, it will merge the two ecosystems together and bring us into a more flexible cancellation policy, just I think as a general rule. So I am a vacation rental weatherman. I'm not a prophet, but if I were a prophet, I would prophesy that it becomes the industry standard over the next year to have a flexible cancellation policy.
With that, I have a question here that says, flexible cancellation, do you mean 24 hours after the reservation is made? Or it says, when you say flexible cancellation, you mean 24 hours after the reservation is made. But most of the guests are looking for free cancellation 30 days from arrival date. Do you recommend this?
When we say free cancellation, it usually means free cancellation until very close to check-in date and not necessarily 24 hours after booking. Again, let's compare it to the airline industry. You used to cancel by law 24 hours after booking. If you're looking at any of the major airlines today, you can actually cancel and without any change fee or cancellation fee until the moment of departure. As Tim said, I'm very cautious about prophecies, but if I had to guess, I would say that this is going to be an industry standard. And again, some property managers would say that for longer stays of 30, 60, 90 days, allowing people to have flexible cancellation until day before check-in is very risky. And so there are some edge cases that you need to actually put some thinking into. But as a general rule, for most of the inventory, for the average stay of between 3 and 7 days, the recommendation across the board would be to introduce flexible cancellation until very close to the check-in time, anywhere between 5 days and the actual day of. Tim, hopefully you agree with me.
Yeah, I like to do it like all the way up until the stay begins. Which seems a little bit crazy, but like if somebody does cancel at the last minute, the OTAs really boost your listing to try to get you a rebooking. And like usually if somebody wanted to cancel, they had a reason, and that reason wasn't that they were trying to screw you out of money. So like if you try to hang on to the reservation, they're going to be resentful, and then you have conflict with the guest. I say like let them go. Like it works at hotels. Like your operations have to be like really, really sharp, but if you can handle it, then absolutely do it. You'll make more money.
And cancellation picked up in April and May. We're now seeing us coming back to normal days in terms of cancellation. People are much more comfortable with traveling, which is good.
And if you are setting the owner expectation up correctly, and I use this thing called a golden number, where the owner and the property management agree what the amount of money is going to be generated for this next year, and you're presenting that information on a regular basis to them through their owner statements and so on, it becomes really powerful to basically say, look, if you want me to hit these numbers, you got to trust me. And cancellation is part of that. And yes, there are going to be some cancellations that occur at the last minute, but again, you need to trust me. As long as I hit that number for you, or I hit all of your goals for you, do you really care if it's a last minute cancellation? It's a real change in the way the world is done, but it's because you are trying to be as transparent as possible, and you're trying to look at big picture and really try and understand the owner's bigger needs than this one reservation.
And do any of you foresee in the future this new evolution of these consulting services where you could have basically a ranking system as to what the risk threshold of each owner would be? So maybe some owners are more willing to give up all of that full control and go head first, where some owners are a little bit more cautious. I mean, maybe there could be some variation as to the level of services that a property management company could provide the owners based upon their risk tolerance, just like asset management.
I think actually most of the PMSs sort of have some of that ability, but most agencies probably have never thought about that. So Don, that is an interesting concept, but most of us have a rotation schedule built into our system, so that when the search comes up, the properties that are 5-star, I mean least amount of occupancy, those types of things. So you add that item into the whole concept, it probably does make some sense. You're either all in, or you're partially in, or you're we're just kind of helping you with your cleanings and stuff like that.
Okay. Well, does anyone else have any questions they'd like to send through? I would like to address Neil Fitzgerald. Neil, we see all of your questions, and they are absolutely great questions. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to forward all of your detailed questions over to the panelists and have them contact you directly. And so if I know that we are quite a bit over, but everybody seems to have hung on. So I want to thank everybody for hanging in there today. And if anyone has any other questions, feel free to reach out to our panelists. And I am supposed to remind everyone that picks up tomorrow morning, and everyone should be back at, let's see, I'm so sorry, Corinne just sent this to me. Let's see, tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern is when we kick off. So that's it. Everyone have a wonderful evening. Please stay safe, and we'll see you back here tomorrow.
Thank you, Dawn, for moderating. Appreciate it.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.